So it is the Bite Me podcast, and once in a while we like to do kind of like a supplemental kind of show segment or podcast. And with the release of Injustice 2, I thought it would be kind of fun to get a friend, colleague of mine on the phone who kind of has a little insight into that game, or at least one of the characters. The woman's name, Tasia Valenza. Hello, Tasia.
Hello, Adam.
How are you?
I'm thrilled to be with you.
Great. Thanks for taking some time out to talk to me. And I know you and I, just full disclosure for everybody listening, you and I actually work together fairly, frequently. Once a week, we chit-chat a bit. You're one of the voices on one of our radio stations here in Seattle. Mm-hmm. So I feel lucky that I get to talk to you every so often.
Well, thank you, and I would have to say the same for you. I enjoy our conversations right back at you, and I love working with you as well.
Yeah, and it's a lot of fun. So when I started working for Movin', you were one of the voices here, and I had no idea at the time who I was talking to. And then I started playing more video games. We started doing our podcast, and I started looking into it a little more. And you're an actress. You've been an actress for a while. You're very successful at what you've done. Mm-hmm. And over the years, you've kind of gone more into the voiceover role, the voice acting role. And with the advent of video games becoming this big immersive experience, you have kind of found your way into that realm, which is really cool. And it turns out, I had no idea, you're the voice of Poison Ivy in all the Arkham games and in the new Injustice 2 game that's coming out.
Yes, I am.
So you're Poison Ivy.
So they say. So much more than Tasia Valenza,
right.
Radio imaging queen. I've been blessed enough to be able to do video games and animation in general for the last, 20-something years. So.
Yeah, we were chatting a bit before we started recording, and your first video game kind of voice acting gig was for Leisure Suit Larry, is that right? Yes,
for all the Leisure Suit Larry lovers. Yes, I got to play several characters, including Annette Boning, which I thought it was, very camp, very silly at the time, and thought, okay, this is another fun medium.
Right.
I call myself a recovering actress and a fully functioning voiceover artist because I acted on screen for many years and then segued into voiceover and turned away from the on-camera once I recognized what a great life it was to be a voiceover artist, and then I just kept doing different mediums, but having my roots in acting, the video games and animation came very easily, and I just enjoyed it so much. But I didn't know, 20 years ago what the medium it would become.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah, so I was doing Leisure Suit Larry, and then I got to do Sniper Wolf in Metal Gear Solid, and really had no idea the impact of that game and that character, which a lot of people consider Metal Gear Solid one of the first games that they were able to take video games and turn them into emotional characters that people cared about.
Right.
So that was really cool, but I didn't have any idea of the impact of that until YouTube came along, and I got to see some, and then social media. Because otherwise, you're in a vacuum. You're just going on with your life. I mean, I work, and I'm a mother of 3, and, every so often a fan would say something, but it's one or two. And then the floodgates of social media open, and you're like, wow, who knew?
Yeah, exactly.
People think, that's very cool. So I've gotten to play some very cool, iconic, strong female characters.
Yeah, you've done, like you said, you brought up Sniper Wolf in the Metal Gear Solid series. I said Poison Ivy in the Batman, the Arkham games. But you've had roles in games from Star Wars, from Saints Row. You've been a voice on the actual TV series Star Wars, The Clone Wars, World of Warcraft, Batman, a Final Fantasy game. You've just kind of done Infinite Crisis. Like, these are not just little games that nobody's heard of. These are massive, massive games. So
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, these are incredible games and incredible things to be a part of. And I remember when I started playing video games when I was a kid, if you wanted a story, if you wanted story, you were reading it off of a screen. And,
right.
Yeah. So, and I mean, that's the way it was. That's just what it was. And reading, I love to read, so why not? But then as the technology grew and everything grew, these experiences started coming together with actual voice actors. And I remember some of the early games, it was just quick. We're going to grab, intern Bob down the hall. He's going to say this and we'll stick it in a video game. And everybody at the time thought that was cool. But now they've become such big emotional, investing, time-consuming experiences. And they're not just games. They're stories that people actually get to be a part of now.
Mm-hmm.
So, and not just reading it on screen, having it acted out for them as though they're in it with the character.
Yeah, it's a very cool medium now. It's very lifelike and immersive.
Mm-hmm. What do you think when it comes to the whole medium itself versus actual movies? What do you think? Do you think there's what are the benefits of working in video games as opposed to film type stuff? What do you get out of it more, or do you get anything more out of it, or is it just different?
I would have to say one of the reasons I stopped being an on-camera actress and being a voiceover artist to begin with was the freedom as a performer and an actor that being a voice artist allows you to, rather than on film, because film is very much a physical medium, and what you look like is what you are cast at. I mean, if you don't walk in the door and they don't feel like you're what they had in mind, you're out. There's not a lot of imagination when you're cast. Mm-hmm. So I was very much relegated to, leading lady female, which was lovely, and played many roles in that. But once I was able to be a voiceover artist, whatever my voice could do, mm-hmm. From playing Poison Ivy to Shaq T and computers and kids and all the characters, I was able to all of a sudden do. So that's liberating as an actor to reach outside and just express your talent and your art and say, yeah, if I can make that voice and I can make it believable and you'll go on the ride with me, well, that's wonderful. And that's what all animation video games have given to me. And certainly the more it gets realistic, the more it's fun, too, because it's, between... I haven't done mocap yet, but I have worn cameras on my head now.
Oh, motion captures?
Yeah, a certain kind where they're capturing with my movement of my face mm-hmm. and how I speak, but it's still all about what I can do as an actor with my voice. And nice. I always call it giving great voice, and I love to do it. That's so wonderful.
Yeah. Now, when it comes to, because I've actually had people come through my studio. We had somebody in last week from a college here in Seattle, and he was asking my advice on how to, what types of things I should look for, where they could start when it came to being a voice actor, because he was very much interested in being a voice actor specifically for video games. So this is a industry that there are people now. It's not just that might be something I could do if whatever. Now people are actually studying and trying to get into this very niche type of thing.
Right. That was very different. We didn't have that experience where people were, when I was doing it, that people were trying to get into a specific genre. I was just a voiceover artist and did every sort of genre, and now it's definitely more people have a passion and they want to be involved in the industry, and maybe they want to be involved with specifically the video game industry versus commercial narration, mm-hmm. radio imaging, all the very myriad of different mediums that you can be as a voiceover artist, and I think it's great. It always goes back to the initial thing that I tell anybody, which is that you need to know your craft, and therefore you need to study acting, obviously, because video games are more and more about very real acting, and the more it's almost like a movie, so they don't want it as exaggerated and cartoony as maybe they did it originally. Again, from characters like Annette Boning to playing, some of the characters I played now. Some of it's very real, and I think it's going even more real the more technology allows it to be almost movie-like. So, you have to study. I do believe, again, online you can find mocap actual trainings around the country now, and there's voiceover workshops all around the world, online studying. The world is your oyster in terms of if you wanting to study that particular craft, even if you don't live in the major cities, I believe you can still do it.
Yeah.
The online portals are allowing for, obviously, if you can fly and be physically somewhere where you're actually in it, it's great. I think it really comes down to, study your craft, make a demo, and then you have to market yourself to get it out to people that will listen to it.
Right. So now, and you just said a few minutes ago, and I also heard from another voiceover guy that I work with, when it comes to doing voiceover sessions, whether it's for a commercial or whether it's for a role in a video game or even an animated show, he suggested, and I had never even thought of this, and you'd said it, take an acting class.
Absolutely, because at the end of the day, you're not just reading lines. You have to make it come alive. Mm-hmm. And that all comes from the ability to transform yourself into the character, whether or not you're putting on the makeup or the dress or the, which again, the on-camera world or the theater world, you're really physicalizing it where everyone can see you. As a voiceover artist, you can do those same things should you choose. You want to, don on the green makeup and, cosplay yourself into a role. If that helps you as an actor, go to it. But you still are an actor. You're a voice actor, but you're still an actor. And an actor studies his craft.
You have now played Poison Ivy over the course of 5 games. How did Poison Ivy land in your arena, and how did you become her and stuff? Well,
again, I'd like to say that I'm the only actress who ever played her, but we know there's a myriad of wonderful actresses that have, and voiceover artists as well. And I was lucky enough to get the first Arkham game. Mm-hmm. I tend to play, as I mentioned, strong female characters because we are, again, as actors, what we are most comfortable with, and I'm a strong female in my own personal life, as you might know.
Oh, yeah.
It comes across, and so I fell into it just through my agent and auditioning the normal way, and then I didn't realize it was going to be 3 games, which was wonderful, and showed a great evolution of Poison Ivy. And then I guess they liked me in the world of video games, and Infinite Crisis asked me to be Poison Ivy, and then the same thing happened with Injustice 2. So I take it as a great compliment and an honor that my voice and my acting has merged with her in a wonderful way, and people are responding to her. And I think her humanity comes through because, sometimes the characters can be one-dimensional, and I think Poison Ivy, is considered a villainess, but she's far more, and certainly I think that showed in Arkham Knight, mm-hmm. when she was the Shiro, actually, and sacrificed herself. And so I really try to lend the humanity to my characters, and thankfully the public has responded. And
oh, yeah.
And hopefully I'll keep getting to play her.
Oh, yeah, and that's one of the things that I do like about the DC universe when it comes to their villains, villainesses, whatever. They're not just a one-dimensional. They're not just a bad guy. They've got their flaws, they've got their histories, and they've got their places they've been and where they're going, and they're always in some kind of state of evolution where it seems like some other comics, not always by any means, but a lot of them, they are the bad guy, they get done, and then they're gone.
Right. I appreciate that, we are complex beings, and they write them really well to show they're complex and multidimensional, and the bad guys aren't completely bad, or why they became that way. Mm. That this is, again, when you become an actor, you learn no bad guys think that they're bad. They justify what they do. That's what makes it so interesting, is that if you thought, you never think, you wake up in the morning and think, I'm going to be a bad guy. You make choices in your life mm-hmm. based on your history and your belief systems. And as an actor, you make sure that those choices have a reason. And it's not just like black and white, like, oh, well, it says I'm going to be a bad guy, so I better act like a bad guy. You think, well, why am I doing it? And then, you justify it just as we do in real life, why you do the things you do. Mm-hmm. And that's what makes them, multidimensional characters and interesting, from the good guy. That's why people love playing bad guys, I think, so much, actors tend to, because, the dimensions do seem, sometimes, the good guys, they're the heroes, and you just root for them, but they don't always get to explore some of their darker sides.
Right.
And it's, as the villains and the villainesses, you get to have more fun kind of thinking, like, why did she say that? Or what does she really want when she's saying this line? And it just makes it really fun as an actor to delve into that.
And I was gonna ask, is that probably one of the things you've enjoyed most about playing the role of Poison Ivy? Is that she is quote unquote a bad guy, but she's got such a great arc and a great story, and you get to think, kind of differently than you would normally think in your day-to-day life.
Yeah, well, she certainly has. Her belief system is to save the planet, so that's certainly something you can get behind, right?
Noble. It's very noble.
You gotta love her. She really does have a good reason for, and she's got a lot of angst and anger about man messing up the planet. Yeah. So I think that she might go about it in not necessarily the nicest way, but she certainly has a reason for what she does.
Gotcha.
So it's fun. It's definitely fun, and she's an amazing, iconic character, and I love her along with the other ones that I've been blessed enough to play because, again, they're all interesting and they're all different from me and yet have through lines of what makes them tick, and I get to, bring that to each one and try to define them in their own right, but at the same time, bring truth to them. That's the whole idea.
So we are going to link you, all our listeners. We're going to link our listeners to all of your social medias and your website because you're online. You've got a presence there as well. Where can people follow you if they're listening right now?
Yes, thank you for asking. I'm on Twitter and I'm on Facebook. I do try to tweet as much as I can, at least several times a week, and I try to respond to fans, which is lovely because they're just so supportive. And I have an Instagram, and my website is TasiaValenza.com, ironically. Simple, but right to the point. And I actually have my sizzle reels on there of some of the animated characters that people might not be familiar with the fact that I played, so that's kind of fun. I put them together. And I even have my on-camera sizzle reel, which shows me, prior. So that's because some of my fans are the younger ones that remember me from, that know me from the video game and the animation, and then I have the older ones from knowing me from when I was on camera and on All My Children, so I put that together, and I always think that gives people a kick because they just don't realize I'm the same person.
Right. So. Yeah, and when some of our listeners pull up your sizzle reels or your IMDb page, and when they start delving into what you've done, they're going to see a list of characters and a list of things that are going to shock them because I can guarantee you we've got a good chunk of our listeners that have heard your voice over the years way more than just Poison Ivy. So I think some people are going to be really surprised.
Well, hopefully, and yeah. I hope that they enjoy, finding out that some other characters that maybe they liked are me.
Oh yeah, they're going to find that these are like the Metal Gear games, the Batman games, the Arkham games. You've got such a catalog of characters and games and films and TV, and I can't wait for people to see that I get to talk to you.
Oh. Well, again, we've been working together for quite a while, and I've been for those that live in Seattle, I think that would surprise them too. That Poison Ivy is the voice of Movin'. So that's another thing. A lot of that's the great thing about being a voiceover artist. You can be so many things to so many people, and it's the joy that I get from doing the job.
Well, Tasia, thanks so much for spending some time with me this afternoon. I appreciate it.
Adam, it's a pleasure, and I'll be speaking to you sooner than later.
All right. Great.
Most interviews, it's like it's over, and that's it. With us, we get to jump back on the line. So
yeah, exactly. When we finish with this, I've got a couple of artists I need from you.
There you go. So we'll be speaking right now.
All right, perfect.
All right. Well, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye.